used to think that if you want to create something valuable, you always need to try your best. But having that mindset put me under a lot of pressure, and I realized that I stopped enjoying being creative. So for this project, instead of only worrying about achieving a good result, I focused more on the creative process. And I decided to make a journal dedicated to this experience, so if you're interested in how this is going to turn out, you are more than welcome to join me on this journey. So I love all things pink, and I still had this pink second-hand toe skirt. That was a little bit too big for me though, and I thought it would be fun to make a top out of it. And as I was designing the top, I noticed that the sleeves kind of look like cotton candy, and yeah, therefore the name. But I also got inspired by all the beautiful flowers in my garden. And yeah, I really want this top to feel like a warm, sweet day of spring. But honestly, at first I was worried that the design is too tacky and too girly. And I remember in fashion school, I always worried about what people might think about my designs. And I think in the end of the day it was about wanting to be taken seriously. But you know, I don't really care about that any longer. I just want to have some fun, and yeah, if people like it, I'm happy, and if they don't, that's totally fine as well. And obviously it's always better to be your authentic self. I'm not telling you anything new here, but I think it's good to be reminded of that from time to time. On this page I wanted to capture the mood. What I mean by that is that I'm always trying to create a world for my designs to live in. And yeah, this one is filled with a lot of nostalgia. You know, I was thinking about old fun fairs. So I painted a carousel that looks like it's coming straight out of Disney World. And to add some weirdness to it, I made a collage with a little lizard man. And he's one of the passengers on the carousel, and you can tell because he's pulling up his arms, you know, he's having a lot of fun. Yeah, and I thought it was cute, so. The second page is dedicated to the emotional and intimate side of a project. I made a little diary, which I called Book of Secrets. And I thought it would be nice to frame it, but since you could still see some of the white page under the frame, I decided to put some colorful paint on it. But honestly, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. It kind of looked like a train seat cover. So I tried to cover it up with some white paint, but it still peeked through. But then it kind of reminded me of iced candy, and I thought it was quite fitting since the whole design is inspired by cotton candy. While I was working on those pages, I realized that sometimes mistakes aren't even mistakes. I mean, you might think that they are in the beginning, but they can actually lead us to an even better idea than the one we had before. And yeah, they can be a little challenging, which I think is good because then we have an opportunity to grow. But of course, sometimes we're just making mistakes, and that's totally fine. All you can do then is to learn your lesson and move on, but it's definitely not something bad. It's just a part of the whole process. For the pattern, I made a basic corset pattern with my own measurements. It took me some time to get the fit right, but in the end it's always worth it. And I also added an underbust seam to it. For the sleeves, I just used a basic sleeve pattern, and I cut off some of the upper part of the sleeve, but I still left some of the armhole in, so it's easier to attach the sleeve to the corset later. And also to make the sleeve a bit more voluminous, I cut the pattern apart, and then I could just add some width to it. I made the top out of 2 layers, one satin layer and one toe layer, and I thought it would look cute to gather the toe layer on the front part of the top to make it match better with the sleeves. But honestly it didn't look that good on the lower part of the top, which was a bit frustrating, but sometimes when you know you can do better you should, right? So I just cut it off, and I left the French seams though and turned them into a fake boning, which I really liked in the end. So yeah, the process mainly consisted out of a lot of fabric gathering and sewing, and yeah, it wasn't that interesting honestly. The making of the sleeves was very simple. What I like to do to make them more voluminous is to add an extra layer of a more stiff tall fabric, and you wouldn't see that because it's hidden between the outer fabric and the lining. And I also like to use some fiber fill just to make it even extra fluffy. Something I gotten into recently is hand sewing. To me, hand sewing has a similar effect to handwriting. Not every stitch you're gonna make is going to be the same, and yeah, they're all very unique, but I think that's what makes it so special and personal. And yeah, I like to hand sew in the evening with some radio noises in the background, and it feels very meditating, and I also think that it helps me to focus more on what I'm doing. Yeah, I decided to hand sew the buttons, and I made them out of satin because then they kind of remind me of a very shiny pearl necklace. And at first I was a bit frustrated because I wasn't able to make them perfectly round, but now I think that that makes them more special because they vary in size and shape, and they kind of remind me of untreated pearls or raindrops after a rainy day.
No, I can't get enough of you. My early morning coffee.
I didn't have anything that would go over the top, but I remembered that a few years ago I made a pair of pants out of a very pretty and dark blue fabric, but unfortunately it's a size too big for me. So I thought, why not just recycle it into a pair that would actually fit me? And yeah, that's what I did. I tried to keep the design very simple but elegant though, because I don't want them to distract from the top. I just want the pants to accentuate it, if that makes sense.
Boy, you'll be pressing me like a cappuccino machine.
I also want to share with you how I make bowing tasks more fun. You know, tasks such as finishing the hem, ironing, or anything like that. And the answer is, of course, makeup, right? Yeah, I just like to put on some makeup just to feel good and look good. And I also like to make myself a nice drink and watch a romantic movie. Oh, and before I forget, may I introduce to you Marie de la Mer. She's my new friend. She owns a very chic bar on the sea. And yeah, that night we kept each other in very good company.
Morning coffee. I like it. Coffee. I like it like that. Coffee. Like you. I like it strong like I like you. I like it like that. I like it. I like it strong like I like you. I like it.
When I finally finished a project, I always like to celebrate it. It's something nice to look forward to, and it's a lot of fun. I also took the time to reflect on the project, and I remembered that as a kid I loved to invent games. I never knew where I was going with them though, but that was really the fun about it. And I think with this project I was able to reignite some of that excitement I felt as a kid. And I think that's probably only possible because since I didn't really know how the project would turn out, I kind of had to learn how to trust myself that I will figure everything out when the right time has come. And I think this is really what it's about. You have an idea, that intrigues you, and you just start to explore it more and see where it's taking you. It's basically like a little adventure you're going on. When I go thrift shopping and I find a piece I like, I often wonder what its history is, who was wearing it and what it meant to them. And I want to give a cotton candy top a history as well, but since it doesn't have any yet, I thought why not just imagine one. So I made a little fashion film just about that. The glitter on Juliette's eyelids reminds her of flies in the sun. She wears it with a lipstick he picked for her. It's a warm night. The stars shine bright in the distance. She's getting ready for a wedding. Why doesn't my ring fit the way it used to? Juliette wonders. Her eyes are still burning. Sometimes she wishes she could just dance it all away. The rose he gave her turned black. Her mother, Lady Odelia Wilhelmina Auguste von Brunnenschlund, does not approve of him. But Juliette isn't surprised. The old lady is a tough nut to crack. He's everywhere, the rose. The lipstick. The little elephant he brought her from Thailand. The sweet smell of the lily of the valley. It reminds her of a cotton candy she tried on her first date. It was way too sweet. The night fades away and so do her worries. The wedding dress is a dream. She's waiting and waiting and waiting. Where is he? Her impatience grows. Hours pass, days pass, months pass. The wedding never happened. Finally, Juliette feels free and walks away.